Hi, this is Unsuitable with Mary B. Safrit, the podcast where I interview single Christians about their lives and faith. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of season 2. I have some dynamite interviews for you this season that I am pumped to share over the next few months. As this is the season premiere, let me give you a super quick rundown of what to expect this season. The interviews are split into 2 series. Each series is going to be made up of 4 interviews. I decided to use this format to create more focused content for y'all. So series 1 is on singles feeling unsuitable in their work/career, and series 2 is about singles feeling unsuitable in relationship and community. At the end of each series, you're going to get a wrap-up episode where I'll share my thoughts on the theme, make connections between the interviews, and it'll finish up with some resources for anyone interested in engaging more deeply on the respective topics. So, first up, you're going to hear from my friend Heidi Clark. Heidi is a copywriter, aspiring jazz singer, dad joke lover, and ice cream fanatic. In this episode, we talk about her journey as a musician and writer, her struggle to find work, and how she is wrestling with her faith in this frustrating time of underemployment. I think that New York is an exceptionally career and achievement-driven city, so I wanted to start this series off with someone who challenges how career-driven our conversations can be. So, here we go. Heidi, what's up?
Not much, Mary B. What's up with you?
Yeah, just hanging out.
Same.
Recording some stuff. Yeah, sitting here talking to you.
I am enjoying this nice LaCroix. My first ever LaCroix.
Wow.
That you have given me.
I try to be accommodating, but also to open people up to new experiences. So I'm glad that...
Check and check.
I'm glad that my hospitality is up to par here on this podcast.
Yes.
Or at least with this experience for you. Well, Heidi, thank you for coming all the way, the 10 blocks to my apartment.
The 10 long, hard blocks. Technically 14 and an Ave.
14
I am a
and
writer.
an Ave.
I know nothing about math.
I am a writer. We're both actually
I was going to say.
writers and singers.
Musicians,
yeah,
which everybody says.
Look at
if
that.
you're a musician, you're also a mathematician, which I have many problems
That's
with.
not accurate. There's no way that's
no.
true. Who says that?
So many people.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, so speaking of commuting all the way up here and some of our shared interests, what brought you to New York?
Well, Mary B., I have wanted to live in New York ever since I was a wee tot. When I was little, I wanted to be an actress, and I had always been told that actresses went to New York City.
Okay.
So in the 2nd grade, I decided that one day I would live here, and now I do.
Wow. But you're not an actress.
I am not. So I have had many a change. Not many a change, but a change in that path. So, like I said earlier, I'm also a musician. And so I knew that I wanted to move here and pursue art in some way. And it's kind of a long time coming. And getting up here, I started to pursue acting a little bit. I had come up here previously one summer, and I did this acting conservatory, and I started studying privately after I moved here with this one teacher that I really liked and connected with from this conservatory, but it was really expensive, and so I kind of stopped doing that for a little bit, and then decided that I wanted to be pursuing... long story short, right now I'm pursuing jazz voice.
Right.
One of the backstories, briefly, is that I studied classical piano all of my life.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that. Didn't come to New York as soon as I would have liked to because I was doing that. And then I tried to do acting a little bit. But in my pursuit of doing that, after I came to New York, I realized, actually, I think that I want to do full-time jazz because I was meeting people who were doing that, and they were young, and I realized it was an option. So that is what I'm doing now.
Awesome. You've wound up in the area of jazz as you said, young people also do jazz. So that was a fun revelation for you.
Yeah.
Prior to that, though, in college, you said you were studying music, but you also studied writing. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so I have been playing piano since I was 5. So I started taking piano lessons when I was 5. I started playing by ear before that. And I don't really know how I fell into that. It was just something that we discovered that I liked to do because my grandparents had this little keyboard at their house. And so I would occasionally tinker around with that. And so it was just something that I really liked. And because I was showing so much interest in it, my parents said, we should get her in lessons. And that was when I was very young. And they said, the people that they would bring me to were saying, we should probably have her reading words before reading musical notes. So we had to postpone my lessons until I was 5.
Oh, right. I was like, really?
Yeah, this is like 2 years ago. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, I don't even know. I don't hang out with kids ever. So I'm like, I don't even know when people start reading.
Yeah. This is what they tell me.
Or when they start playing piano even.
Yeah.
Right?
But
so you started playing piano at 5.
I started playing piano, yeah. And I just continued to do it, and I was pretty good at it as a kid. And then I got more serious about it when I realized, I could actually, maybe have a future in this because I seem to have, at least a talent for it. One of the only talent of mine. And so because I was doing that, it kind of was inevitable almost that I would be pursuing that in college. And so my high school years were filled with intense piano lessons and master classes and competitions and all of that. And then in college, I pursued it for a little bit because that's kind of what I was expected to do.
Right.
And then the writing, I feel, is my main employable skill. So I'd also been writing for a long time. Just because I did it when I was little just for fun. And then it was sort of the thing in school that I felt like I really connected with. And so I decided that it would make sense to get a degree in communication. So I went to a small liberal arts school. And so my degree was in something called writing, rhetoric, and communication, which sounds very liberal artsy. It
does.
Just like a well-rounded communication degree.
Yeah.
And originally I was going to double major in WRC and piano performance. But what I found was that studying piano in an academic setting like that very much became a chore. And so I decided to sort of reduce that, and I minored in piano instead.
Okay.
So I majored in WRC, minored in piano, and fun fact, also minored in psychology. So
very well-rounded liberal arts experience, for
very
sure.
True.
You're like the poster child for liberal arts schools of like, I feel like so many people that I went to school with, because I also went to a liberal arts school, so many people I went to school with were either double majoring or majoring with like a triple minor or something like that. Yeah. That's just so common because you have to take so many classes. You find so much stuff that you're interested in.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, my minor in psychology happened way later, and I actually was trying to graduate early because I didn't want to be there anymore, and I was just so tired of it, and I felt like I was not on a path really that I had chosen. And interestingly enough, in my pursuit to graduate early, I discovered psychology and this field that I ended up really loving, and I decided, I discovered psychology. It's all because of me. No, but I decided that so in trying to graduate early, I overloaded semesters, and I took summer classes. And one of the summers I had to fulfill an Area 4 requirement or something like that. So I took this positive psychology class, and I really loved that. And then I decided, instead of graduating a year early, I want to graduate a semester early because I have found this discipline that I really enjoy, and I'm going to keep taking classes in that. And then I just minored in it while I was at it.
Because you probably just had enough classes anyways. You're like, I might as well tack this on. Yeah. So you mentioned that you had planned on double majoring in WRC and music.
Yes.
You dropped it down to a minor, and, you mentioned that piano had become a chore. because, I also studied music in school, and I know that the pianists were expected to practice like 5 hours a day, which was just bananas to me. As a singer, we only were expected to practice 1 hour a day because, the voice is you have to be very careful about not overworking your voice. Right. And I'm sure that, there are limitations to your hands as well and how much you should be working those. But the voice is pretty sensitive, especially as it's still developing. So and even the 1 hour a day felt like a lot for me sometimes. So I can imagine, I would think about the pianist sitting in there hammering it out 5-6 hours at a time.
It was hard. And honestly, I did not practice as much as I should have, I would say. I would definitely practice at least an hour a day, but I needed to practice more. And around the time of my senior recital, the last few months, I was probably practicing at least 3 hours a day. But generally, it's hard to pursue any sort of performance while you're also getting, a normal non-performance degree because obviously you have to take all of your classes generally and you have to write all your papers and do your homework and study for your tests. In addition to learning all your repertoire, practicing that, getting that in your head and in your fingers or in your mouth, as you might be doing. And it was rough. Physical limitations is definitely a thing. I would just get really tired, and I have very small hands. For those of you who cannot see them right now, they're little.
Which is everyone except me.
Yes. Or so we think. But I have small hands. And it was rough. There are so many pieces that I've wanted to learn that I cannot learn because my hands...
any Rachmaninoff.
Pretty much, my friend. Luckily, my span has, expanded over the course of my existence. But I remember one time for one jury, I had to play this Chopin piece. And it was this beautiful Chopin etude or nocturne. And I loved it so much. But the entire left hand was pretty much octaves all the way through. It was so hard. It was hard just because it was also a fast-paced piece in many ways, at least the accompaniment. So my left hand was always kind of going at a relatively consistently quick speed. And practicing that, for hours a day was so tiring. And I remember I sprained my hand. I stretched my thumb in a way that was just really, really painful. And my teacher said, you have to stop doing this. You can't do juries. So... luckily, I got out of juries.
Well, yeah, that's actually a blessing. I used to dream about some scenario like that where I would not have to do my juries. For those of y'all who don't know what a jury is, outside the context of a courtroom, not dissimilar.
I was about to say, actually, it's almost the same.
Oh my gosh. It's just the most intimidating way that you could grade a person who is performing a piece of music that is subjective. It's aggressive. So for ours, in both undergrad and grad school, I think, you would have, as a singer, I would have prepared a set number of pieces in a set number of languages. So I think we had to have 4 languages, and then any extra we wanted to throw on because, why not? So English, French, German, and Italian were the 4 standard ones that you had to have. And then I think my last year I ever had to do, I had 9 songs that I had to memorize.
Oh my gosh.
The song and, perform it, but also memorize the word for word translation. So you walk into a room with your pianist, and for me, obviously, you were the pianist in your scenario.
I also had a pianist, and I would hire her to do all my juries.
You would just stand there.
Looked very similar.
And tell her what to do. Anyway, so for me, I would walk in with my pianist, and it would be the entire voice faculty, and you would sing a song, and they would pick a song, and then they would be like, okay, so blah, 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 foreign language piece that you sang. Start here and speak the text. Oh. So then you would speak the German or whatever it was. And they're like, all right, now give us the translation. And so they could pick any piece and they could start at any random point in the piece. And you just had to know it.
I know. And they really keep you on your toes. That's stressful. I've definitely been in situations where they have made me start at certain points of a piece. But luckily for juries, I mean, not that it was less stressful, but for us, we would have to learn either 2 or 3 pieces of contrasting genres. I think it was normally 2 pieces. We would have to do scales, of course. And we would have to know backstory.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to
forgot about
scales. And we would have to be prepared to answer questions about the context of our piece and the composer and things like that. And the thing, too, is I would imagine, I'm not sure if this is how it is for voice either, but a lot of times one piano piece will feel like 3 separate pieces because you have to learn, movements in addition. Like one piece could have 3 movements total. And so the jury that I got out of it really just because, well, number 1, I couldn't do it. But number 2, the following semester, I was going to be doing a senior recital, which I didn't need to do, but I wanted to do it because I was thinking I'm going to definitely just at least show all the work that I've been putting forth. And so one of the pieces that I learned, this Ravel Sonatine, it had 3 movements in it, and each one was like its own separate piece. And so it was, it was a very involved process preparing for juries. So, yeah, which it's just stressful because you're really literally sitting in front of a panel of judges.
Yeah. Well, and I had this one voice teacher. Well, I mean, she wasn't my teacher, but it was one of the voice faculty. She just did not like my voice. And so, I mean, all of the comments you get in the grades are anonymous, but I always knew which one she was because she gave me a C. And I was like,
come on.
This is like, what?
Yeah.
Because she thought that I had this specific problem with my voice. And so she was like grading me badly because she thought that my voice teacher wasn't addressing the real problem of my voice.
That's very odd.
Anyways, yes, she was a joy to be around.
Yeah,
but she wasn't my teacher, so that was good. For me, it just took a lot of the joy out of singing and just put so much pressure that I was already putting on myself of like insecurity of like whether my voice was even good or not, and like insecurity about how I was performing, and insecurity because I didn't technically have a background in like classical voice. I studied voice was my main instrument in undergrad, but I was really sort of studying composition. So I didn't really have a background in opera per se. Then I studied it in grad school. So I had a lot of insecurity from that as well. And so it just made it really, really hard for me to like singing by the end of it. And it sounds like you had some struggles with that as well with piano.
Yeah, I definitely had some struggles with it. I think though that I definitely made the right choice in reducing my exposure and application of piano because, now, I still enjoy it now. When I want to play for fun, I'm able to do that. And I think a lot of that is attributed to my teacher in college, too, because he really, really liked me as a person and a musician and was receptive to the fact that it was not fun for me for a while. And so he kind of did what he could to help me find the joy again during times when I wasn't, and helped me to tolerate the times that were difficult. Because, of course, as a music lover, he didn't want to see me go through that, and he wanted me to be able to love it for as long as I could.
Well, it's good that you kind of were able to keep that, find a way to study music, but also keep your love for it and keep, the joy and the passion that's kind of important when you're playing music or doing music.
Yes.
And do you feel like that's sort of why you're, still doing music, even though you're not like a pianist now? Can you talk a little bit about what the transition was like for you from pianist to jazz singer?
I've always loved jazz and I've always loved singing. And part of the reason I wanted to be an actress was because I loved musical theater. And I think the reason that I loved musical theater was because I really liked singing. And so that gave me a way to sing because I wasn't able to sing aside from that. I mean, because everything was about piano, and I was able to have, the extracurricular of being in theater in high school, but I wasn't really able to take voice lessons or anything like that. So being able to sing in musical theater was really fun. And I do think it was sort of that aspect of it that made me want to do theater or think that I wanted to be an actress. Though, obviously, if I had that opportunity now to pursue acting, that would be really cool, and I would not be opposed at all. But it was the singing, I think, that really drew me into theater. And so, yeah, finally moving here and being able to say, you know what? I forgot that I can do that if I want, or at least I could try that if I want.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And it feels like the most natural thing I've ever done. It doesn't feel, it just makes so much sense. And it's so strange because sometimes I feel like maybe this is also because I'm so out of practice when it comes to piano, but I feel like for so long, piano is what came naturally to me. And the most comfortable that I've ever felt is sitting in front of a keyboard. But now, singing jazz and in that genre and the way my voice sounds singing in that genre, to me that feels like the most right thing, I guess. So that's really cool to be pursuing that and finding this whole jazz community here that I didn't really realize existed.
Yeah. So as a jazz singer, you said you have this one employable skill, which is writing. Do you feel like you've been able to balance like having to work a day job and pursuing singing as well?
Does that answer your question?
Kind of the eternal question,
no, I'm
right?
just kidding. It's definitely a challenge, but it's doable. And I think it's mostly a challenge right now because I am in between jobs, as they say. So I'm a freelance writer, which in itself is difficult because it's inconsistent, you know, as you know. And so I actually work also at a clothing store right now, just to kind of like get me out of the house. Well, so when I first moved here, I had one consistent freelance writing job that I was doing all the time when I was at home, and it was remote. And I was in my apartment all the time. Then I got this retail job because I wanted to get out of the house. And luckily I had that because the startup that I was working for, there was less work to do for a while. And so then I was relying a lot on the money from the retail job. And so I've sort of gone in and out of freelance gigs while having the retail job, which is nice. But it's just difficult because there's little money in that. And I don't know, it's just such a competitive city.
Yeah.
And it's hard to not be discouraged some of the time because I have been interviewing for so long, and I a lot of the time will not hear anything, or I'll hear no, or I'll go through 5 rounds of of interviews and then hear no, so it's just this whole thing. And I had this particularly frustrating experience recently, from August to January, where I was with, this one company doing freelance writing, and they basically led me on for a while and said, we are considering you for this full-time position. We want to talk to you about it and everything. And, that last month, I was the one initiating all the communication. They were not talking to me at all. They were not keeping me in the loop.
Yeah.
And then literally 3 days before I was supposed to leave, I said, can we please talk about this? Can you schedule me in to have a chat? And they said, so we actually hired somebody else. Just kind of like, why could you have just told me that before? I would not have been mad. I just need to be kept in the loop in some way. And so I think part of my frustration is the fact that a lot of times it just seems that there is not much consideration in the workforce, at least as much as there could be. I don't know. I just wish people would put themselves in each other's shoes a bit more.
Yeah, I mean,
as I take a swig of my LaCroix.
Of your LaCroix, really taking the edge off there.
Oh man.
Yeah, I imagine too, it's really frustrating in a city that's as career driven and achievement driven and performance driven as New York because I mean, it's like every conversation you have is what, like it's like the second question that you get asked.
Yeah. That's exactly the case. It's so fast paced. Everybody is worried about what they're doing and how to succeed in their job and, just curious about the success of others and their competition. And I don't know. It's very much perpetuated here, I think. Especially with the fact that everybody's just running around all the time.
Yeah.
Literally running. It's like running to this place and to that place.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not very restful.
Yeah, no. And it's interesting that mindset I've found can be part of the church conversation as well, or the conversations that you might have in church. So like if you're in between jobs, which many people are, it can give this kind of church is not necessarily a place away from that. It kind of is something that follows you around no matter where you go.
Yeah, it is ever prevalent, I think. But I don't know. I am very grateful for, obviously, my church home and, the people that I've gotten to know there because I think that they have made it all the more tolerable to be dealing with all of these things. Because, I don't know, it's very easy to get discouraged and to not be happy, but at least I am joyous most of the time.
So would you say that in this time, your faith has been something that has sustained you, or would you maybe say that you've been a little bit frustrated? Just kind of what has your faith looked like throughout this very long, extended job hunt process that I'm sure has been incredibly frustrating?
You are correct. I am very much a person who, in retrospect, is able to see where God has been. It has been immensely frustrating because I don't want to say I don't know where he is right now because I know he's there, but I have no idea what he wants me to be learning in this, which is frustrating for me because I like to be relatively in the know about things. I don't have to have everything planned out or have structure all the time, but I do like to sort of have an idea of what's going on with my life. And when I don't, like right now, I get a little on edge.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, obviously, I know that I'm supposed to be learning to trust him, but it's much easier said than done. I will say I have felt very... my faith does not come without its doubts, and its worries.
Right.
But it's still very much there, obviously. It's hard when I'm in the tunnle and I have not seen the light yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know
so
exactly
I don't know. I mean,
what you mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I'm finding joy in the day-to-day, but there's not much, surface level obvious happiness right now. Well, that sounded maybe a little too dark, but I'm just very frustrated and sad about the way things are.
Of course. I mean, and understandably so, especially because you're like, I don't know. I feel like, for me at least, when I'm in that situation, which LOL, I am, but like, you're like, God, I feel like I'm doing the stuff you want me to do. I don't feel like I'm like totally whiffing it here, but I have no idea how this is going to end and what's going to happen and where you are in all of this. And, it all feels like just so uncertain. and
yeah, it just feels like blind navigation.
And also like, I don't know, I'm sure it's not easy having all of that rejection all the time. I mean, that's why I stopped auditioning partially. That's one of the reasons that I stopped auditioning, because it's just like that constant rejection is really hard.
Yeah, and I think what has frustrated me the most is just that, and I'm very aware that, sort of the culture right now is you're not really going to hear back, or if you do, so many people are applying that you're probably going to hear no. But I think what's frustrating me is it seems like it's been an eternal process where I finished my copywriting, my 6-month copywriting gig, where I thought that I was probably going to have a full-time job. And when that didn't work out, I started, since then for 3 or 4 months, I have been applying nonstop to things and interviewing nonstop to things. And I would imagine that one person or one company would offer me something. And so it's just kind of like, I am interviewing so much, which I'm very grateful for, of course, interviewing a ton, but what is going on to where I can't get a job? And that's just frustrating, because also when I get feedback, if I get feedback, it's usually, you were really highly considered for this. We can't really tell you anything you could have changed. We just liked this other person better. And it's kind of like, well, I'm happy they don't need me to change anything about myself, but also something's got to change, obviously, because I'm not getting anything, and I can't apply the feedback that they're giving me to better my chances at, the next round. So it's just, it's a very frustrating time. But as a Christian, I don't expect times to not be frustrating, because it's the same. We're living the same life as anybody else. And so I know that I'm going through this for some reason. And there will be those days where it's kind of like, okay, this makes sense. I can see what he's trying to do here. I'm getting a little bit more hope because he planted this for me, and like little bits of encouragement. But it feels like it's been so long that this has been going on. And I would like for it to end. Yeah. Because I really like to eat. And I'd like to be able to finance my ice cream habit. Yeah. Well, Heidi, thank you for your honesty and for this conversation. Before we close out, will you tell me one thing that's hard right now and one thing that's great? Yes. Great. One thing that is hard is being financially stressed, which obviously comes from underemployment. Right. Yeah, it's hard just considering how expensive the city is, and I feel like a lot of times it hinders my ability to live, because I want to go hang out with friends. I want to go get a drink. I want to go get dinner with people downtown. And in order to get downtown, I have to pay. And, so it's just nonstop spending, which I can't afford right now. Yeah. So that's frustrating. But something that's good is that in my time of underemployment, I have had much more of a light schedule. And that has allowed me to do a lot more music-related things, whether it's, go to a party where I, at somebody's apartment where I don't have to pay to drink anything, or, I don't have to spend money. I can just go do there and jam out with people, or I can go to the park and sing, or I've been meeting a lot of people, and, some of it requires that I spend a little bit of money just to get down there, but once I'm able to be down there, and all these places, I am meeting more of the community and just kind of becoming a familiar face, and able to just talk to more people who are doing what I'm doing. And I just feel like I've been able to pursue more musical opportunities and be more in the jazz know. So that's been good. Awesome. Well, Heidi, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. That's all for now. Check back next week for a brand new episode. You're going to hear from Christian Smeltzer, who is the CEO of Suede Incorporated. We talk about the entrepreneurial journey, Christian's decision to not go to college, and integrating faith into our work. It's a great conversation. You won't want to miss it.
Thank you for listening. Thanks to Heidi for the interview and for coming back to re-record because of technical difficulties. Theme music is by Chad Rallinson and sound editing is by Andrew Kim. If you have any thoughts or want to engage on this topic further, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, or you can go to my website, marybsafrit.com, and subscribe to my newsletter. You'll get an email from me every other Wednesday with an exclusive message and direct access to content and resources I think you'll love. You can also shoot me a message by clicking on Contact Me on my website. And you can always head over to Instagram and follow me at maryb.safrit. That's all for now. Check back next week for a brand new episode.